Welcome back to Secrets Exposed. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. You're the reason these stories worth sharing. Tell us where you're watching from, city or country. We're amazed by how far these tales reach. To get daily new and amazing stories for you, subscribe our channel and press bell icon. All right, let's begin. The house was unusually quiet that night. Mark Bennett had just returned from his office study, where stacks of architectural blueprints lay scattered on the desk. He rubbed his eyes, expecting to hear his son Daniel upstairs playing with his toy cars or humming the theme of his favorite cartoon like he usually did before bed. But instead, silence pressed down on the house, thick and unnatural. Then he heard it, a muffled cry, faint, almost lost beneath the hum of the refrigerator. At first, Mark thought it was the wind outside, maybe a stray sound from the neighborhood. But it came again, soft, broken, and desperate. A child's voice. He froze. His chest tightened, the air catching in his throat. "Daniel," he called out softly, his voice unsteady. No reply, only another muffled sob. Mark's legs carried him instinctively toward the sound. It seemed to echo from beneath him, not above. His footsteps creaked against the wooden floor as he moved down the hallway. Then his eyes fell on the old door at the far end, the one leading to the basement. A chill ran through him. He hadn't opened that door in weeks, maybe months. They rarely used the basement except for storage, and Daniel was never allowed down there alone. The sound came again, clearer now. His son's voice cracked and weak. "Dad, please." Mark's blood turned cold. His heart slammed against his ribs. He reached the door in 3 strides, his hands shaking as he gripped the metal handle. It resisted at first, stuck from the humidity. He yanked it harder, panic boiling in his veins, until finally it gave way with a groan of old hinges. The smell hit him instantly, damp cement, mold, and something else, something metallic like rust or old blood. A single bare bulb flickered above, casting long shadows across the unfinished concrete walls. And there, in the corner, was Daniel. The boy sat curled up on the cold floor, his wrists bound by a coarse rope tied cruelly tight. His cheeks were streaked with tears, his lips trembling as he whispered again, "Dad." Mark staggered forward, his knees nearly buckling. He fell to his knees beside his son, hands fumbling desperately at the knots. "Oh my God, Daniel, what happened? Who did this?" His voice cracked as if he didn't want to believe the obvious answer already clawing at his mind. Daniel whimpered, clinging to his father's arm as soon as his hands were freed. "I was scared, Dad. I didn't do anything, I swear." Mark pulled him close, wrapping his arms around the boy's trembling body. "It's okay. You're safe now. I got you." His words were steady, but his heart was in chaos. Who could have done this in their own home? And then, behind him, came the sound of deliberate footsteps. Mark whipped his head around, his chest tightening. At the top of the stairs stood his wife, Vanessa. She wasn't frantic. She wasn't horrified. She wasn't even surprised. She leaned against the wooden frame, her posture relaxed, a glass of wine cradled loosely in her hand. Her dark hair fell over her shoulders, her face lit not by guilt, but by something far colder. "He needs to learn respect," she said, her voice smooth, almost bored. The words cut deeper than any scream could have. Mark stared at her, his mouth open, his brain struggling to process. "What did you say?" Vanessa sipped her wine, her gaze steady, unflinching. "He lied to me, so I taught him a lesson." Mark's stomach lurched, while rising in his throat. His grip on Daniel tightened, as though shielding him from the venom in her words. "You tied him up in the basement? He's 10 years old, Vanessa. He's our son." His voice shook with rage and disbelief. Her expression didn't waver. She tilted her head, as if she were explaining something obvious to a stubborn child. "If he learns respect now, he won't make bigger mistakes later. You're too soft on him, Mark. Always have been." The silence that followed was unbearable. Daniel buried his face into his father's chest, whimpering. Mark could feel the boy's tiny body trembling, his heartbeat racing in sync with his own. And for the first time in 12 years of marriage, Mark looked at his wife and saw not a partner, not the woman he loved, but a stranger. The glass in her hand caught the faint basement light, reflecting a crimson glint. She took another sip, unbothered, and turned her gaze back to him with a thin, cold smile. Mark's breath grew ragged, fury rising with every second. He held Daniel tighter, whispering, "It's going to be okay, buddy. I won't let anything happen to you." But as his eyes locked on Vanessa, he realized he no longer knew what safe meant inside his own home. And deep down, in that moment, he knew this was only the beginning. Mark's arms tightened around Daniel, as if his grip alone could shield him from the coldness dripping from Vanessa's words. The boy's tiny fingers dug into his father's shirt, his tears soaking the fabric. Mark's chest heaved, torn between rage and disbelief, but his voice came out low, rough, and shaking. "What the hell is wrong with you, Vanessa? He's your son." Vanessa's wine glass tilted slightly as she swirled the red liquid inside, her eyes fixed on it rather than the horror unfolding in front of her. Her calmness was more terrifying than if she had screamed. Finally, she lifted her gaze, her expression unreadable. "You baby him, Mark. You always have," she said coolly. "A boy needs discipline, not coddling. If he lies now and gets away with it, what happens when he's older? Well, he's a man." Mark's jaw tightened so hard it ached. "He's 10 years old. 10. You don't teach a child respect by tying him up like some criminal." His voice broke on the last word. He looked down at Daniel, who was still trembling in his arms, whispering, "I didn't lie, Dad. I didn't." Mark brushed the boy's hair gently, his throat tightening. "I know, buddy. I know." But Vanessa's sharp voice cut through the moment like glass. "Do you?" The question hung in the air, cruel, deliberate. Mark's head snapped toward her. "What the hell are you implying?" Vanessa stepped slowly down the stairs, each heel clicking against the wooden steps. She wasn't rushing, wasn't afraid. Her pace was deliberate, measured, like a predator closing in on prey. "He told me he finished his homework. He hadn't. He told me he brushed his teeth. He hadn't." She reached the bottom step, raising her glass as if she were delivering a toast. "So he lied, and liars deserve consequences." Mark's face went red with fury. His pulse pounded in his ears. "You think tying him up like an animal is the answer? Vanessa, this is abuse." Her lips curled into a mocking smile. "You think the world cares about your soft parenting? Out there, the world eats liars alive. Better he learns it here, where he's safe, than out there." Mark's stomach churned at the word safe. Safe? His son, bound in a damp basement, terrified? Nothing about this was safe. Daniel whimpered, clinging tighter. "Dad, please don't let her. Please don't let her." His words broke off into sobs. That was it. Something inside Mark snapped. He pulled his phone from his pocket, his fingers trembling so violently that he nearly dropped it. Vanessa didn't move. She didn't even blink. She simply tilted her head and watched, curious, like a scientist observing an experiment. Mark's thumb slid across the screen, dialing 911. His voice came out strained but forceful. "Yes, my son has been hurt. My wife, she locked him in the basement. Please send help right now." For the first time, Vanessa's lips twitched upward into a faint smile. Not fear, not guilt, amusement. Mark's stomach dropped. Why wasn't she panicking? Why wasn't she even trying to stop him? When he hung up, the silence was deafening. Vanessa leaned casually against the wall, taking another slow sip of wine. "Good," she murmured. "Let them come." Mark blinked at her, stunned. "What did you just say?" Her eyes glittered under the single bulb. "Call them. Bring them. Maybe they'll finally understand." Mark felt his world tilt. He wanted to shout, to demand answers, but Daniel's trembling frame in his arms anchored him. He couldn't risk frightening his son even more. The seconds dragged. Every creak of the house made Mark's nerves jolt. He whispered to Daniel, "It's okay. They're coming. You'll be safe." But deep down, a chill gnawed at him. Something about Vanessa's calm, almost eager expression made his skin crawl. Minutes later, the sound of sirens pierced the night. Red and blue lights flashed through the living room windows, painting the walls in violent streaks of color. Tires crunched against the driveway gravel, and a sharp knock echoed through the house. Mark rose, clutching Daniel tightly. He glanced back at Vanessa. She was still leaning against the wall, wine glass empty now, her gaze fixed on the door. "They're here," she whispered, her tone almost delighted. Mark's breath caught. For the first time since he opened that basement door, he wondered if calling for help had been the right decision, or if he had just stepped into something far darker than he could imagine. The pounding on the front door reverberated through the house. Mark's pulse surged in his throat as he clutched Daniel against his chest. The boy's sobs had quieted to shallow hiccups, his small face buried into his father's shirt. "Help's here," Mark whispered, his voice cracking more than he wanted. But his son didn't lift his head. He was still shaking, every breath uneven. The pounding came again, louder this time. "Police! Open up!" Mark hurried to the door, his free hand fumbling with the lock. His heart hammered as he yanked it open. Officer Delgado stood in the doorway, tall, uniform crisp, one hand resting on his holster. His eyes scanned Mark's face first, then shifted down to the boy clinging to him. Right behind him, a paramedic hefted a heavy kit bag, his face set in professional calm. "What's the emergency?" Delgado asked quickly, voice firm. Mark stepped aside, voice tumbling out in panicked bursts. "It's my wife. She locked him in the basement, tied him up. He's just a child. Please, you have to." The paramedic's focus immediately went to Daniel, crouching slightly to make eye contact. "Hey there, buddy. You okay? We'll take care of you." His voice was warm, careful, but Delgado's gaze had already shifted past Mark, further into the house. Mark followed his line of sight and saw her, Vanessa, standing in the kitchen doorway, as calm as if she'd been expecting guests. Her posture was casual, her glass now empty, resting on the counter. The faintest smile played on her lips. "Evening, officer," she said softly, as if greeting an old acquaintance. Delgado froze. The color drained from his face in an instant. His hand twitched near his holster, fingers curling tight. His lips parted, but no words came at first. Mark felt his stomach flip. "What? What's wrong?" "Arrest her." Delgado didn't move. His breathing hitched, his eyes fixed on Vanessa like he was staring at something impossible. His jaw clenched so tightly that the veins in his neck strained. The paramedic glanced up at him, frowning. "Delgado." Vanessa tilted her head, her smile widening ever so slightly. "Long time," she murmured. The officer's eyes widened further. Sweat gathered at his temple. His voice finally broke free, hushed and trembling, though it carried like a gunshot in the tense silence. "She's on the list." Mark blinked, not comprehending. "The list? What are you talking about?" Delgado didn't answer him. His stare never left Vanessa, his right hand inching the holster open. Mark's throat dried. He turned back to Vanessa, who stood perfectly still, almost amused. His wife, his partner of 12 years, was smiling. Not with love, not with fear, with something else. Something that made his skin crawl. The paramedic shifted uncomfortably, lowering his bag to the floor. His voice dropped to a whisper meant only for Delgado. "No, it can't be. You said she vanished years ago." Mark spun toward them, his chest constricting. "What do you mean, vanished? What the hell are you two talking about?" Neither answered him. The air in the house had shifted, thick with unspoken recognition, with dread. Daniel finally lifted his head from Mark's chest, his voice tiny and afraid. "Dad, what's happening?" Mark pulled him closer, though his own heart was in chaos. "It's okay, buddy. It's okay," he whispered, but even he didn't believe it. Across the room, Vanessa let out a soft laugh, low and chilling. 12 years, she said, her voice deliberate. "And not once did you ever think to ask the right questions, Mark." The words sank like stones in his chest. Delgado's stance stiffened. His gun clicked free of its holster. "Sir," he barked, eyes still locked on Vanessa. "Take your son and step outside. Now." Mark's breath hitched. He wanted answers, but Daniel's safety came first. He lifted his son higher in his arms, his feet heavy as he began backing toward the door. But before he crossed the threshold, he stole one last glance back at his wife. She was staring straight at him, her expression calm, her smile razor-sharp. Her eyes gleamed with something he had never seen before. Not love, not even anger. Something darker. And in that moment, Mark realized he wasn't sure who or what he had been living with all these years. The air inside the house thickened like smoke. Mark's grip on Daniel was firm, his son's face buried deep into his chest. Outside, the ambulance lights flickered through the curtains, red and blue strobing across the living room walls. But Mark's eyes never left Officer Delgado. The young officer stood rigid, his weapon drawn but not yet raised, his eyes locked on Vanessa, as though she were a venomous snake. His lips trembled as he repeated under his breath, "She's on the list." Mark's throat tightened. His mind clawed for answers. What does that mean? What list? Delgado didn't answer. He inched forward, his voice steady but sharp as he addressed Vanessa. "Put the glass down. Step away from the counter." Vanessa tilted her head, her lips curving into a smile that looked almost playful. "Still so by the book, officer. You haven't changed at all." Mark's stomach lurched. "You haven't changed at all." The words suggested history, a connection she shouldn't have had. Delgado's jaw tightened. "Quiet. Not another word." His knuckles whitened around the grip of his pistol. The paramedic, who had crouched beside his bag, glanced nervously between them. Sweat shone on his brow. He whispered urgently, "Delgado, if this is who I think it is." "It is," Delgado snapped, cutting him off without breaking his stare at Vanessa. Mark's chest burned with questions. He could feel Daniel trembling harder now, the boy sensing the fear that filled the room. "Somebody tell me what the hell is going on," Mark shouted, his voice breaking with frustration. Delgado's eyes flicked to him for the briefest second. "Sir, I said take your son and go outside. This is no longer just a domestic call." Vanessa laughed softly, low and cruel, and set her glass gently on the counter with a deliberate clink. "You're scaring him, officer. Look at Daniel, he's shaking. Is that what you want?" Mark's teeth ground together. "You don't get to use his name like that." His voice trembled with rage. "Not after what you did to him." Vanessa's gaze slid back to her husband. Calm, unbothered, almost pitying. "You'll understand one day, Mark. I promise." "No," Delgado barked. His gun rose now, aimed squarely at her chest. "You don't get to justify what you did. Not after everything." Mark's heart pounded louder. He wanted to scream at them both, to demand answers, but fear for Daniel's safety chained him in place. He edged toward the door, step by step, but his ears clung to every word. The paramedic finally spoke, his voice quivering. "This doesn't make sense. She vanished. They said she was gone for good. We thought she was dead." Vanessa's eyes flickered toward him. Her smile sharpened. "And yet here I am." Mark's skin crawled. The woman standing across the room looked like his wife. The same soft features, the same dark hair, the same woman he'd kissed goodnight for 12 years. But the voice, the manner, the words, everything else was foreign. Delgado took a deep breath. His voice dropped, low and heavy. "Mark, listen to me carefully. There's a federal list. Names of people tied to unsolved child disappearances. People so dangerous that every precinct keeps a copy. She's one of them." The words landed like stones, heavy and suffocating. Mark blinked hard, his brain rejecting it outright. No, that's insane. She's my wife. She's Daniel's mother. We've been married for over a decade. You've got the wrong person." But Vanessa's expression didn't shift. If anything, her silence confirmed it more than words ever could. Delgado's voice hardened. "We've been hunting her for years. And somehow, she built a life right under our noses." Mark staggered backward, his legs unsteady. His arms tightened around Daniel, as if to make sure the boy wouldn't vanish too. His breath came in ragged bursts, the world tilting violently around him. Behind him, Daniel's small voice cracked through the chaos. "Dad, I'm scared." Mark swallowed the lump in his throat, forcing himself to sound steady even as his heart fractured. "It's okay, buddy. I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you." But as he looked at Vanessa, her calm smile, her steady gaze, her chilling silence, he realized he didn't believe his own words. Because suddenly, he wasn't sure who he had let into his life. And worse, he wasn't sure how long she had been hiding the truth. The living room felt colder now, though the air conditioner hadn't clicked on. Mark's arms wrapped protectively around Daniel, who clung tighter with each second. His son's breathing came in uneven gasps, his eyes squeezed shut. Mark wanted to shield him from everything, from the sight of his mother, from the words hanging in the air. But there was no escape. Vanessa leaned against the counter, arms loose at her sides, her face carrying an expression Mark had never seen before. Not shame, not anger, but an unsettling serenity. As though this moment was inevitable. "You talk about me like I'm a monster," she said finally, her voice calm and measured, directed at Delgado. "But the truth is never as simple as your reports make it." Delgado's stance stiffened, his gun unwavering. 3 children, he spat. Gone without a trace. You were the last one seen with them. Don't you dare try to twist this. Mark's head snapped between them. His pulse thundered in his ears. What? What is he talking about, Vanessa? What children? Vanessa's gaze turned to him, her eyes softer now, almost tender. Mark, please. You know me. You've lived with me, loved me. Do you really think I'd hurt a child? Her voice pulled at him, a familiar melody of trust. For a split second, Mark almost wanted to believe her. But the image of Daniel tied up in the basement crashed over him, shattering the illusion. Yes, Mark said, his voice breaking. I do. Because I just watched you do it. The softness vanished. Vanessa's eyes hardened, her lips curving into a faint, cold smile. You still don't understand. The paramedic, crouched near the wall, whispered under his breath, God, it really is her. His hands trembled as he fumbled with his kit, though he hadn't yet dared to approach. Delgado's voice cut like steel. You disappeared 12 years ago. The case went cold, but the photos never left our files. I've memorized your face. We all did. You think you could vanish forever, but monsters always resurface. Mark shook his head violently, disbelief clawing at him. No, this is insane. Vanessa isn't some fugitive. She's been my wife for over a decade. She gave birth to Daniel. She's lived here, Vanessa interrupted, her voice sharp. And yet, did you ever once ask about my family? Did you ever wonder why no one from my past came to our wedding? Why no one ever visited? Why I never told stories about my childhood? Mark froze. The questions dug into him like nails. He had noticed, hadn't he? Little things, odd silences, vague answers whenever he asked about her past. But he'd brushed them aside, believing every couple had secrets. You thought it was love, Vanessa continued softly. But really it was convenience. You never looked too closely. That's why it worked. Mark's chest tightened, a sick wave washing over him. Convenience. The word burned. Daniel whimpered, tugging at his father's sleeve. Dad, I don't want to stay here. Mark pressed his lips against the boy's hair, whispering, I know, buddy. I know. We'll get out soon. But his own voice shook, betraying his fear. Delgado's patience snapped. His gun hand steadied as his other hand reached for the radio, strapped to his shoulder. Dispatch, this is Officer Delgado. Confirming positive ID. Subject is Vanessa Hale. I repeat, Vanessa Hale. Requesting immediate backup. Static crackled. A voice responded, urgency in its tone. Copy that, Delgado. Units en route. Mark's knees nearly buckled. His wife, Vanessa Hale. Not Bennett. Not the name he thought he knew. He stared at her, voice raw. Who are you? Vanessa's smile widened, her eyes glittering. I'm the woman you fell in love with, Mark. That's all that ever mattered to you. Delgado's voice thundered, louder now, no. You're the woman who stole 3 lives and ran. And tonight it ends. Mark's chest heaved, his world crumbling piece by piece. He couldn't look away from her face. The face of the woman he thought he knew, now revealed to be something else entirely. But what chilled him more than anything was her calmness. As if she wasn't afraid of being caught. As if this, too, was part of her plan. The living room was no longer a home. It was a stage set for something darker, something Mark could barely comprehend. Red and blue lights still flickered faintly through the curtains, casting Vanessa's face in alternating shadows. Daniel's tiny hands clutched at his father's shirt, and Mark could feel his son's tears soaking through the cotton. Delgado's gun remained fixed on Vanessa, his voice sharp. Step away from the counter. Hands where I can see them. But Vanessa didn't flinch. She straightened slowly, folding her arms across her chest, her dark eyes sweeping over Delgado and then settling on Mark. "You want answers," she said softly, her tone almost maternal. "But you won't like them." Mark's throat tightened. He took a step forward, despite the pounding of his heart. "Then tell me, because right now, I don't know if I'm standing in my house with my wife or a stranger." Vanessa's lips curved faintly, not into warmth but into something sharper. "I've always been both, Mark. Your wife and a stranger." Delgado barked, "Don't play games." She turned her gaze back to him, calm and cutting. "You speak as though you know me, officer. But you don't. All you know are case files and rumors. Paper trails written by men who never understood." Mark's breath caught. He wanted to scream at her evasions, but a part of him was afraid of what the truth might be if she stopped dodging. Daniel whimpered against him. "Dad, I want to go home." Mark's chest cracked to the words. This is home. Or at least it had been. But how could he ever call it that again? Vanessa's gaze softened, only slightly, as it shifted to her son. "Daniel," she whispered, "I did this for you." Mark snapped, his voice raw. Don't you dare say this was for him. You tied him up, left him crying in the dark." Her tone didn't rise. It stayed eerily steady. "Because he lied. And lying is the first step down a road you can never come back from." Mark stared at her, disbelief etched into every line of his face. "He's 10 years old. You think this cruelty is going to make him better?" Vanessa tilted her head, her voice lowering. "It saved others once." The words froze everyone. Delgado's grip on his gun tightened, his jaw clenched. "Don't you dare try to justify what you did. Those children didn't need saving. They needed to go home." Vanessa's smile flickered, almost sad. "Home? You think they had homes? You never saw the bruises, the broken spirits. You never heard their cries at night. I took them from cages and gave them peace." Mark's chest constricted. His voice wavered. "What are you saying?" She looked at him, eyes glistening now with something that looked like conviction. "I didn't steal them, Mark. I rescued them." The silence after her words was unbearable. The paramedic whispered hoarsely, "God help us." He pressed a hand to his forehead, shaking his head as if trying to make sense of it all. Mark's world tilted. He searched her face, desperate for some crack, some proof this was all a lie. But her eyes didn't waver. She believed what she was saying. "You're insane," he whispered. "No," Vanessa said, her voice steady as stone. "I did what no one else had the courage to do." Delgado took a sharp step forward, his voice cold. "And where are they now? Where are the children you claim to have saved?" For the first time, Vanessa's smile faltered. Just slightly. Her gaze flickered, almost imperceptibly, toward the basement door. Mark's breath caught. A chill crawled up his spine. The room seemed to close in, the shadows deepening, the silence suffocating. Vanessa's voice dropped to a whisper. "You never asked what was really down there, Mark. You only opened the door tonight." Mark's knees went weak. He pulled Daniel tighter, heart slamming against his ribs. Delgado's voice thundered, breaking the stillness. "Backup is on the way. And when they get here, you're done. No more hiding. No more stories. You're going to show us everything." Vanessa didn't resist. She didn't argue. She simply leaned back against the counter, her eyes never leaving Mark. "You'll see," she said softly. "You'll all see." And though her voice was calm, every word dripped with something far more terrifying: certainty. The ticking of the wall clock filled the silence, each second stretching like an eternity. Daniel's breathing was shallow against Mark's chest, his small fingers still gripping his father's shirt. Outside, the strobe of police lights pulsed faintly, but no additional sirens came. Delgado's radio crackled again, his voice sharp as he pressed it. "Dispatch, what's the ETA on backup?" The reply came garbled but clear enough. "All units delayed. Heavy traffic 15 minutes minimum." 15 minutes. Delgado cursed under his breath, his gun never wavering for Vanessa. His jaw was locked, tension radiating from him. "We don't have 15 minutes. Mark's stomach sank. He couldn't stop the thought. 15 minutes is a lifetime in this house. Vanessa, however, only smiled faintly, her posture unbothered, her tone almost amused. 15 minutes, plenty of time. Mark's head snapped toward her. "Time for what?" Her eyes glittered. for you to decide whether you really want to know me." The words sent ice down his spine. He tightened his hold on Daniel, who whimpered softly, whispering, "Dad, I'm scared." Mark bent his head, kissing his son's hair. "I know, buddy. I've got you." His voice cracked despite his effort to sound steady. Vanessa stepped forward, slow and deliberate, though she kept her hands visible. Delgado's gun tracked her every movement. "Don't move," he barked. But Vanessa only tilted her head. "What are you afraid of, officer? That I'll run? That I'll disappear again?" Her voice dripped with mockery. Mark couldn't take it anymore. His voice erupted, raw and broken. "Just stop. Stop playing these games and tell me the truth. Who are you?" Her gaze snapped to him, piercing. "I'm the woman who's been beside you every night for 12 years. I'm the mother of your child. And I'm the only one who's ever had the courage to protect children the way they deserve." Delgado's voice thundered. "Protect? You abducted them." Vanessa's calm didn't waver. "Abducted, rescued, the words don't matter. The truth is, I gave them peace when no one else would." Mark's throat tightened. He searched her face for lies, but her conviction was unshakable. That was the most terrifying part. She believed every word. The paramedic, still crouched, finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "You're sick. You tell yourself these stories so you can sleep at night. But those kids, they never came home." Vanessa's expression flickered, just for a moment. Her smile faltered, her eyes shifting, not to the paramedic, not to Delgado, but again toward the basement door. Mark noticed. His chest tightened, his palms sweating. "What's down there?" His voice was low, almost a whisper. Vanessa's eyes returned to his, sharp and deliberate. "The answer you think you want." Delgado's voice cut in. "Don't listen to her. She's manipulating you." But Mark's heart pounded harder. His memories rushed back. The drawer in her study he wasn't allowed to touch. The nights she disappeared for hours with vague excuses. The men who loitered on their street and drove away when she noticed them. Clues he had buried, dismissed. Could all have been connected? Vanessa took another slow step forward, ignoring Delgado's warnings. "Mark, you think you know right from wrong, but you've lived your whole life in shadows of lies you never questioned. I told you once, you never asked the right questions." Mark's breath caught. Every word seemed to push him closer to a truth he didn't want to face. Delgado finally barked, voice like a whip. "Mark, take your son and go outside now." But Mark's legs wouldn't move. His grip on Daniel tightened, but his eyes were glued to Vanessa. To the basement door she had glanced at. To the weight of unspoken answers pressing down on him. Vanessa's lips curved again into that razor-sharp smile. "Go ahead. Leave. But if you walk out that door, you'll never know who I really am." Mark's chest heaved. The weight of his son's trembling body pressed against him, pulling him one way. The lure of the truth, dark and poisonous, pulled him the other. 15 minutes. The house felt like it could collapse in half that time. And Mark realized with a sickening clarity, no matter what he chose, his life, as he knew, it was already gone. The seconds dragged like hours. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and the uneven breaths of Daniel, his head pressed against Mark's chest. Delgado's gun never wavered, his jaw clenched tight, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. "Don't move another step," he ordered, his voice like steel. Vanessa stopped in the middle of the room. Her posture was relaxed, her hands visible, her expression calm. It was the calmness that unnerved Mark most. Not the rage of a cornered criminal, but the serenity of someone who believed they were right. Her gaze moved from Delgado back to Mark. "You think you know what love looks like, don't you? A warm house, bedtime stories, birthday parties. But love isn't comfort. Love is sacrifice. Love is doing what no one else dares to do." Mark shook his head violently. "That's not love. That's cruelty." His voice cracked, thick with fury and disbelief. "You tied our son in the basement, Vanessa. You call that love?" Her eyes softened in a way that made his blood run cold. "Yes, because if I don't break him now, the world will." Daniel whimpered at the sound of her voice, burying his face deeper into Mark's chest. Mark kissed his son's head, whispering, "It's okay. She won't touch you again." But his own voice trembled. not from lack of conviction, but from the growing realization that he no longer knew how to protect his child from the truth unraveling in this room. The paramedic finally stood, voice shaking but firm. "Stop this. I've seen parents like you before, convincing themselves that abuse is salvation. You tell yourself a story, but kids don't survive stories. They break." Vanessa's smile didn't falter. She tilted her head toward him. "And how many children have you lost on your watch? How many died despite your medicine, your protocols, your procedures?" "I saved mine." Delgado snapped, his voice a whip. "Where are they? Where are the children you saved?" Her eyes flickered again, just briefly, toward the basement door. Mark saw it. His stomach twisted violently. He could hardly breathe. Delgado noticed too. His gun shifted slightly, aimed toward her head now. "Answer me. Where are they?" But Vanessa's voice stayed calm. "You'll never understand. You see monsters where there are none, because it's easier than admitting you failed them. I didn't abduct those children. I freed them from homes that were killing them." Mark's mind spun. His throat was dry, his grip on Daniel trembling. "Freed them? Where did you take them?" His voice cracked with desperation. "Where are they now?" Vanessa's lips parted, and for the first time her voice carried a hint of something raw. "I gave them peace." The words landed like stones. Mark's knees nearly buckled. "Peace? What does that mean?" His voice rose, breaking. "What did you do to them?" Vanessa's gaze locked onto his, unwavering, almost pleading. "I did what no one else would. I ended their pain." The room went still. Mark's arms tightened around Daniel, so hard the boy whimpered. His stomach turned while rising. His wife, the woman he had built a life with, was confessing to something he couldn't even bring himself to name. Delgado's face hardened, his voice a roar. "You murdered them." Vanessa's eyes flashed. "I saved them." Her conviction was terrifying, unshakable. She believed every word. Mark's world collapsed in on itself. He could barely stand, his son's weight the only thing anchoring him to the floor. His mind reeled back to every night he'd kissed Vanessa goodnight, every smile across the dinner table, every laugh they'd shared. How could all of it have hidden this? Daniel's voice broke through a spiral, soft and trembling. "Dad, is Mom bad?" Mark's throat closed. He looked into his son's wide, terrified eyes and couldn't answer. His silence was louder than any words. Vanessa stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that seemed meant for Mark alone. "One day you'll see. I didn't hurt them. I saved them. And maybe, just maybe I'll save him too." Delgado's shout shattered the moment. "Enough. Hands behind your head now." For the first time, Vanessa lifted her hands. Slowly, deliberately, but her eyes never left Mark. And in them, he saw not fear, but certainty. The living room was suffocating with silence, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator and Daniel's shaky breaths against his father's chest. Outside, the red and blue lights kept flashing, but the absence of additional sirens gnawed at Mark's nerves. Every second dragged heavier than the last. Delgado's voice cut through, sharp and unyielding. "Hands behind your head. Now." Vanessa raised her hands slowly, but her eyes never left Mark. Calm, unblinking, that same unsettling serenity that made his blood run cold. "You think you're protecting him," she said, her voice steady, almost soothing. "But you're only delaying the inevitable. The world will break him, Mark. It breaks them all." Mark's jaw tightened, his voice cracking with rage. "He's a child. He deserves love, not this twisted nightmare you call protection." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "And love is exactly what I've given." Delgado stepped closer, his gun aimed firmly at her head. "Shut up. One more word, and you're on the ground." But Vanessa's gaze slid past him as though he didn't exist. Her focus was locked on Mark. Her words meant only for him. "You think I'm the enemy," she whispered. "But I'm the only one who's ever told the truth. Parents lie. Teachers lie. The world lies. I don't." Mark's stomach churned. He wanted to block out her voice, to shut her out entirely, but her words burrowed under his skin like thorns. He hated himself for even listening. Daniel whimpered, whispering, "Dad, I don't want to be here." Mark kissed the boy's hair, whispering back, "I know, buddy. I've got you. We'll get out." His voice shook betraying his own fear. Vanessa's tone softened, almost maternal. Daniel, sweetheart, don't be afraid. Mommy would never hurt you. Everything I've done was to save you. Mark snapped, his voice raw and shaking. Don't talk to him. Don't you dare talk to him. Her eyes darkened, her smile sharpening. Because you know I'm right. Deep down you feel it. The world doesn't care about children like him. But I do. Delgado's radio crackled. Dispatch confirming again. Backup still 10 minutes out. Hold position. Delgado cursed under his breath. His eyes stayed locked on Vanessa, but his voice dropped low, meant for Mark. Listen to me. She's trying to get inside your head. Don't let her. Get her boy out of here. But Mark's legs felt like they were cemented to the floor. Every fiber of his being screamed to run, yet he couldn't. Not until he understood. Not until he knew the truth. He finally forced the words out, his throat dry. Vanessa, those children, what did you do to them? Her expression didn't change, but her voice lowered, rich with conviction. I gave them what no one else would, peace. I ended their pain before the world could swallow them whole. Mark's knees weakened. His chest heaved as bile rose in his throat. You killed them. Her eyes flickered just for a moment, but her voice stayed steady. No, I saved them. The paramedic muttered a curse under his breath, running a hand over his face. His voice trembled. She believes it. God help us, she really believes it. Mark's mind spiraled. Every memory with her felt poisoned now. Every dinner, every laugh, every bedtime story. Was she living a lie all along? Or had she always been this woman, hiding behind the mask of a wife, of a mother? Daniel's small voice cracked the silence again. Dad, is Mom going to hurt me too? Mark's heart broke in his chest. He pulled his son tighter, whispering fiercely, No, I won't let her. Vanessa's eyes softened again, disturbingly tender. I would never hurt him. I'd save him, just like I saved the others. Delgado's patience finally snapped. That's it. On the ground now. He moved closer, his gun pressing forward. But Vanessa didn't drop. She didn't flinch. She stood there with her hands raised, her eyes fixed on Mark, her calmness more terrifying than any rage. You can't hide from the truth forever, Mark, she said softly. Sooner or later, you'll have to choose. Believe their lies or face mine. Mark's chest tightened, his world spiraling faster. For the first time in his life, he wasn't sure what was more dangerous. The woman standing across from him, or the possibility that she believed every word she spoke. The minutes bled together, heavy and suffocating. The living room was drenched in a silence, so sharp it buzzed in Mark's ears. He could hear Daniel's soft hiccups against his chest, the boy too exhausted to cry, but too afraid to stop trembling. Outside, a faint swell of sirens echoed in the distance. Backup was finally closing in. Delgado's shoulders eased just slightly, his grip on the gun firm but steady. Vanessa, however, only smiled, her hands still raised. You think this ends when your friends arrive? She said softly. It doesn't. It only begins. Delgado snapped, quiet, but her gaze slid past him, locking on Mark. Her eyes were dark, glistening with a conviction that made his stomach twist. They'll take me away. They'll tell you I'm a monster. But you've lived with me, Mark. You've seen me with Daniel. Do you really believe I'm capable of the things they say? Mark's throat was raw. He wanted to scream yes, to condemn her, to put a name to the horror unraveling before him. But his mind betrayed him. Memories flooded in, her gentle hands stroking Daniel's hair when he was sick, her laughter filling the kitchen, the warmth of her touch in the quiet hours of night. Could all of it have been a lie? He forced himself to look down at Daniel, his son's innocent eyes swollen from crying. That was the only answer he needed. Yes, Mark rasped, his voice trembling but firm. I believe it. Because I saw what you did tonight. Vanessa's expression faltered. For a brief moment, the calm cracked, something sharper flashing across her face. Hurt? Anger? It vanished too quickly to name. You saw only what they wanted you to see, she whispered. Delgado cut in, voice rising. Don't listen to her, Bennett. She's been running this con for over a decade. Everything about her was a performance. But Mark barely heard him. His eyes were locked on Vanessa, desperate for answers. The children. Where are they? His voice cracked, raw and pleading. Tell me the truth. For the first time, Vanessa's eyes glistened. She looked at him not with mockery or calmness, but with something that almost resembled sorrow. They're at peace, Mark. That's all you need to know. The words crashed over him like ice water. His knees wavered. He clutched Daniel tighter while burning his throat. Delgado's voice thundered, breaking the moment. Enough. On the ground now. The sirens outside grew louder. Headlights washed across the windows as backup cars finally pulled into the driveway. The faint sound of doors slamming and boots hitting pavement filled the night. Vanessa didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on Mark, her voice quiet but cutting through the chaos. Do you really think they'll let you keep him safe, Mark? They'll take me, and then they'll take him too. You'll lose everything. Mark's chest seized. His mind recoiled at the thought. No, they won't. They wouldn't. Her smile returned, sharp and knowing. They will, because he knows now. He knows the truth about me. And children who know the truth never get to stay home. Daniel whimpered softly, whispering, Dad. Mark kissed the boy's hair, his own tears finally breaking free. It's okay, buddy. I won't let them take you. I promise. Delgado moved swiftly now, shouting commands as more officers rushed into the house. On the ground, hand behind your back. Vanessa lowered herself to her knees slowly, deliberately. But even then, her eyes never left Mark. As they cuffed her wrists, she leaned forward just slightly, her voice carrying across the room in a whisper only he seemed to hear. You'll see, Mark. When the world comes for him, you'll see why I did what I did. Mark's chest collapsed inward, his body shaking as though the floor beneath him might give way. He held Daniel tighter, refusing to let go. The house filled with officers, their shouts echoing, their presence overwhelming. But all Mark could hear was her voice, her warning. And for the first time, he wondered if the nightmare had only just begun. The front door burst open as two more officers stormed inside, weapons drawn, their shouts colliding with Delgado's orders. The living room, once suffocatingly quiet, was now a chaos of movement and sound. Flashlights cut through the dimness, beams landing squarely on Vanessa, who was already on her knees, wrists cuffed behind her back. Clear the house, one officer barked, sweeping the corners with his light. The paramedic finally rushed to Mark, lowering his bag beside him. Let me take the boy. Mark hesitated, clutching Daniel tighter, but Daniel's voice was so small, so broken. Dad, I just want to leave. Mark kissed the top of his son's head, then reluctantly let the paramedic guide the boy toward the door. Daniel's hand lingered in his father's shirt until the very last second, fingers slipping free like a lifeline cut. Mark's chest caved as he watched his son being carried out toward the ambulance. For a moment, relief washed over him. Daniel was safe. But that moment shattered when Vanessa's voice rose above the noise. Don't let them take him too far, Mark. He froze, whipping his head toward her. Her eyes locked on his, dark and unwavering despite the cuffs. Delgado yanked her roughly to her feet. Move. But Vanessa didn't struggle. She didn't fight. She walked willingly, her posture straight, her calmness intact. It was her voice that cut the deepest. You think he's safe because he's out there in an ambulance? He's not. You think they'll protect him because they wear badges? They won't. Mark's fists clenched. Shut up. His voice cracked, too desperate, too broken. She smiled faintly, her tone almost pitying. Do you know why they call it a list, Mark? Because it's not just names. It's children. Children they watch. Children they take when they've seen too much. Delgado shoved her forward, his jaw tight. Ignore her. She's manipulating you. But Mark's heart slammed against his ribs, her words burrowing like splinters. Children they watch. Children they take. Vanessa turned her head just enough to meet his gaze one last time before they reached the door. Her eyes glistened, her voice dropping to a near whisper that somehow carried across the room. He's on it, Mark. Daniel's on the list. The words detonated inside him. Mark staggered backward, his breath stolen. His mind rebelled. No, it couldn't be true. It was another one of her manipulations, another twisted lie. But the certainty in her tone, the conviction in her eyes, it sank its claws deep. Delgado snarled. dragging her through the doorway. You don't talk to him again. But she was still smiling as they pushed her outside, her voice lingering like a poison in the air. They'll come for him, sooner than you think. The other officers swarmed after them, shouting commands, securing the perimeter. The house was alive with movement, but Mark stood frozen in the middle of it all, his world shattering around him. His son was safe in an ambulance. His wife, no, not his wife, not really, was being shoved into the back of a patrol car. And yet her words echoed louder than the sirens, louder than the radios, louder than his own heartbeat. Daniel's on the list. Mark pressed a trembling hand against his forehead, his breath ragged. Could it be true? Or was this her final cruelty? To see doubt so deep he'd never find peace again? Outside, he caught a glimpse of Vanessa through the cruiser's window. She sat calm, cuffed, her smile razor-sharp as her eyes found him through the glass. And for the first time, Mark realized he wasn't afraid of losing her. He was afraid she might be right. The cruiser's doors slammed shut, the sound sharp enough to rattle through Mark's bones. Outside, officers barked commands, their flashlights slicing across the lawn, but inside the house the sudden quiet felt crushing. Mark stood frozen, staring at the front door as if the ghost of Vanessa's words lingered in the air. He's on the list. His breath came shallow, ragged. His palms were damp, his mind spinning in circles with no escape. For 12 years, he had believed in the woman he loved, the woman he trusted to raise his son. And now, he couldn't tell if she had been lying all along or if some twisted version of her truth was real. The paramedic returned quickly, his expression urgent. He's stable, he said, nodding toward the ambulance. We're taking him to County General just to be safe. You should come with him. Mark's feet moved before his mind did. He stumbled out the door, the night air hitting him like ice. The neighborhood was alive now, neighbors peering from windows, camera phones flashing, whispers spreading like fire. But all Mark saw was Daniel, sitting on the edge of the ambulance gurney, a blanket wrapped around his small shoulders. The boy's eyes lit up when he saw him. Dad! Mark rushed forward, pulling him into his arms. He kissed his son's head, holding him so tightly it was as if letting go meant losing him forever. I'm here. I'm right here, he whispered, his voice breaking. Daniel buried his face into his father's chest, whispering, I just want to go home. The words pierced him. Home? But what did that mean now? The house behind them felt poisoned, every wall a reminder of what Vanessa had hidden there. There was no going back. Delgado approached, his expression grim. She's in custody. She'll be processed tonight. Federal agents want to talk to you. About everything. Mark barely heard him. His entire focus was on the boy in his arms, but the words still managed to cut through. Federal agents. The scale of what Vanessa had done was bigger than anything he had imagined. His voice came out hollow. Is it true? About the list, Delgado's jaw tightened. He hesitated just a moment too long. It doesn't matter right now. What matters is your son is safe. But the hesitation said everything. Mark's knees nearly buckled. He held Daniel tighter, as if the strength of his embrace could shield him from whatever storm was coming. The paramedic touched his shoulder. We need to get him checked, sir. Mark nodded numbly, letting them guide Daniel back into the ambulance. He climbed in after him, never releasing his hand. As the vehicle doors shut, Mark glanced out the window. Through the glass of the patrol car across the street, Vanessa stared back at him. Her hands were cuffed, her body surrounded by officers, but her expression was calm. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. And then she mouthed the words again, silent but clear. He's on the list. Mark's chest caved in. He tore his eyes away, clutching Daniel close as the ambulance pulled away from the flashing lights. The boy's small voice broke the silence. Dad's mom bad? Mark's throat tightened until he could barely breathe. He looked down at his son, his innocent eyes searching for an answer, an anchor, some reassurance that the world was still safe. But no words came. His silence was deafening. Instead, he kissed Daniel's forehead, tears sliding down his face, and whispered, I'll protect you. No matter what. The boy nodded sleepily, leaning into him, trusting him completely. And in that moment, Mark realized the cruelest truth of all. It wasn't Vanessa's arrest that shattered him. It wasn't even the lie she had told for 12 years. It was the seed of doubt she had planted, one that would never die. Even as the ambulance sped through the night, sirens wailing, Mark knew he would hear her words forever. They'll come for him, sooner than you think. The world outside blurred past the windows, but the nightmare didn't fade. It was only beginning.